Greetings, distinguished followers, Chosen Chimp here. I hope you are all doing well and welcome to another one of my weekly rambles. Soon enough I will be talking about a cool thing that one of my Patreon members showed me, but before that we are going to get straight into some new Doctor Who stuff. I'm going to state the blindingly obvious and declare that we are now officially 2 weeks away from the brand new series of Doctor Who, and the promo train has left the station. I hope you weren't tempted into having that pre-journey pint because the wheels have fallen off the snack trolley and it's blocking the way to the toilets. So we have interviews, images, previews, TV spots, all that good stuff, and we also have an episode titles list. I'm going to read them out now. Okay, so from beginning to end we have The Robot Revolution, Lux, The Well, Lucky Day, The Story and the Engine, The Interstellar Song Contest, Wish World, and The Reality War. Obviously no mention of Claws of Fear or Planet of Doom, so this video right here, just forget I ever made it, just forget it, just don't watch it. I embarrassed myself, I embarrassed all of you. Now is the time for growth and healing and finding the better version of me, find myself spiritually and mentally, become a better person going forward, and meditate on the biggest takeaway out of all of this, and that is it's all Stephen Moffat's fault. So at the epicenter of the promotional campaign that BBC and Disney Plus has been undertaking in preparation for the new series of Doctor Who, we also have a brand new trailer, the most substantial one yet. Now, I know all you guys have watched it and you have seen the breakdowns and the analysis, so I'm just going to give you a couple of my thoughts, and I think it's a very compelling trailer in that it focuses more on the binding theme of this series, of the concept of getting Belinda Chandra home. Get her home. I just want to say, that is a beautiful poster, man. That really gets me excited for this. I totally love that visual. So, in previous videos, and one of the ones I made fairly recently, I talked about how I am really hoping for a departure from the now tired trope of the mystery companion, you know, the Clara Oswald factor of who is this person, what is the big mystery surrounding them, how did they come about, you know, we won't find out until the end of the series, that sort of thing. And we know that they're gonna lean into that to an extent, because one of the previous trailers acknowledges that the actor Varada Sefu played a different character in a previous TV episode. So they'll be addressing that, obviously, not that they have to, really, you know, but there is going to be some focus on that, and that's fair enough, but I just hope that it's something that they just kind of get out of the way so they can move on. I think we are at the point now where we have come to realise that stacking multiple mysteries on top of one another doesn't necessarily make good television. So for the last series, and like I said multiple times, I like a lot of the last series, especially that cluster of episodes in the middle. But when you think back to it, you had the who is this Miss Flood person, why does Susan Twist keep coming up, what's the big mystery of the Pantheon gods, is it a TV show within a TV show, etc, etc, and also the big mystery of Ruby Sunday, who was the woman in the hood, and all that stuff. And I think it's universally agreed that the payoff was a bit disappointing, largely because we have all kind of seen it before. So I will be very, very grateful and appreciative if they just do away with that and it's gone. I really like the idea of this brand new series just being a kind of standalone entity unto itself that is all about the Doctor getting Belinda home, and that's the drama. And it's such a simple concept, it's so beautifully stripped down that it gives more opportunity for real growth and real story and real drama and real emotion to blossom, and I'm hoping that that is what this series will deliver more so than anything else. Obviously we will get certain reveals about Miss Flood, and if it is a kind of ultimate meta commentary and it's a kind of TV show within a TV show, then I do like that sort of thing, so I'm all in for it. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily make good television. You know, I really want to walk away from this new series of Doctor Who feeling something, and I don't think I'm the only one in that department. So moving slightly into a bit of a pivot on that note, I am curious to know what your epicenter of television looks like. Okay, so I'm in a whirlwind of entertainment at the moment. When I say episode of television, epicenter of television, by the way, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be television specifically. It can just be some form of entertainment. So here is what mine looks like, okay? So at the moment, I am reading the epic historical novel Shogun by James Clavell. It's a big book, and I'm enjoying it immensely. I am also watching the new series of Daredevil, Born Again, which, whilst I don't think it's completely perfect, I do very much enjoy the story arc with the main protagonist, Matt Murdock, and the main antagonist, Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. I think they've pulled out all the stops in wringing every bit of intensity out of those two characters separately, and I'm all in for it, so I'm having a great time with that. I am also almost completely caught up on Invincible, which is just, man, what a brilliant series. And the script writers, bravo. Like, I don't know how much of the dialogue or the essence of the dialogue has been taken from the comics because I never read them, but the dialogue is so slick and so on point and so much fun, and it makes the characters so interesting and three-dimensional. I am absolutely just having a wild blast watching Invincible at the moment. I love it. And I am also a pro wrestling fan, so at the moment you've got the WWE build-up to WrestleMania for anybody who's interested in wrestling, and a couple of weeks back, at their last pay-per-view, at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, they dropped an amazingly shocking bombshell twist type thing that had me and millions of other wrestling fans bouncing off the walls. So I'm in a whirlwind of entertainment, and it's a great place to be in. And for me, I'm looking at this new series of Doctor Who, and I'm thinking to myself, how is this going to compete? All right, so yeah, just let me know. Like, get in the comment section. Tell me what your whirlwind of entertainment looks like. What books are you reading? What TV shows are you watching? Comics? Could even be video games, music, whatever you want. Tell me what your whirlwind of media is looking and sounding and feeling like for your good self right now. I'm curious to know. So, watching this trailer for Doctor Who, I'm thinking this is the kind of stuff that Doctor Who has to compete with right now, this new series. And it's up against some stiff competition with all this other stuff that I am enjoying immensely. And then part of me thought, is that really a fair comparison? You know, should I be putting Doctor Who, which in essence is a very different show, should I be putting that in the same box of things like professional wrestling, or with animated TV series, or super violent Marvel TV shows, and, you know, historical novels and all the rest? And then I think about the feeling, and I think, yes, I should, because that feeling I got when John Cena turned heel a few weeks ago, that level of excitement for what was going to happen next, I have felt in Doctor Who before. I remember feeling it during the second part of The Rebel Flesh, which I think, was it The Rebel Flesh? Or did the second part have another title? Please tell me in the comments. But, so Matt Smith's Doctor has known the entire time that Amy Pond is actually a Flesh clone. The audience don't know, but he does, and he pulls back the curtain right at the end and operates as Sonic, and Amy melts into a big pile of flesh goo because she was never the real Amy, and then she wakes up in the box with the evil Madame Kavarian staring down at her, and she's flipping pregnant, and she screams. And this was the run-up to A Good Man Goes to War, which is another great episode. Rest in peace, Simon Fisher Becker, once again. So for that time, all I could think about was Doctor Who and where this was going. It completely and utterly had me by the feels. And this has happened a number of times before. I was very excited after the penultimate episode of the second revival series when the Cybermen conquer Earth. It's not an invasion, it's a conquest. A victory, even, should I say, which is what the 10th Doctor says. And then the Daleks turn up at the end just to screw the pooch even more. And again, I was just completely and utterly just thinking about nothing but Doctor Who for that entire time. And there were other instances as well going down the line, like the trailer to the last Capaldi series with John Simm's Master grinning at the end. Now, by that point, most fans knew that John Sim was coming back to reprise his role of the Master, but just seeing him there whetted the appetite, and that series also revealed Mondasian Cybermen, for heaven's sake. So there has been lots of points in history when Doctor Who has just been my one and only, and modern history as well, where I can think about nothing else, where it is the main focal point of my entertainment sphere. And because this new revival, this RTD2 era hasn't quite lived up to expectations, then I think it's important to get it right this time. Just to recap, the hype over the 60th anniversary episodes were colossal during those final moments of the Chibnall era. The Chibnall era in itself being this perfectly serviceable but also consistently frustrating mid-tenure of Doctor Who. The build-up to the anniversary specials and the initial trailers was so exciting, and I think it's fair to say, whilst it had its good points, it didn't quite live up to the hopes that people had for it. And full disclosure, I fully acknowledge, by the way, that I gushed way too hard over the giggle in my review video. I implied that it was the best thing since sliced bread. I got a bit too giddily excited over that, and when I look back at it and think about it again, it was good, but I probably gave it just a little bit more credit than it deserves, I think. And then going into the new series with the, firmly established Ncuti Gatwa era and a brand new series that was supposedly supposed to bring focus on pulling in new fans, it kind of didn't make particularly good on its promise, what with it paying heavy reference to 1975 Tom Baker episodes and also 75, 76 Pyramids of Mars, can't remember, but also the like I said, the stacking of multiple mysteries didn't quite pay off in the end. So I think that now is the time when they really, really have to do something special. Just imagine when the Ncuti Gatwa era ends, just imagine looking back on it with such intense fondness that Rocky Fur series that was transmitted last year was just a blip on the path to glory. I really need this new series to be something extremely special, and that is why I am going to make a declarative statement right here, right now, on this channel to all of you. And I'm not going to be nasty about this new series of Doctor Who when I'm reviewing it. I'm not going to be venomous. I'm not going to be cranky for the sake of being cranky. I'm going to highlight the positives as and when and give it all the credit it deserves. But at the same time, I, the chosen chimp, will be holding this brand new series of Doctor Who to the highest possible standard. Because why shouldn't I? Like, I don't mean to sound like an entitled fanboy. You know I'm not that kind of dude. But there's been enough track experience and enough learning from the seasoned veteran writers, aka Russell T Davies, to give nothing but the perfect Doctor Who experience. And with this interesting new companion, with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor, who I think is a great Doctor, he can play his heart and soul out, he gives it 1,000,000,000% every time he appears on screen. I just think there's no reason for this not to be excellent, and if it's not excellent, then they kind of screwed up. And if at the end of this series it turned out to be the same as the previous series, but slightly worse, which is an extremely likely possibility, and, you know, there's a very real chance it could be that. I hope it's not, but there's a very real chance that it could be that. Then I will still keep this channel going. I will still love and champion the great institution that is Doctor Who. And I know that a lot of you fans will keep coming back as well, even if this series turns out to be a bit of a gut punch in terms of quality and good writing and good storytelling, and kind of, you know, a kind of acknowledgement that the fan base need something new and engaging and dramatic to make this era a success. Okay, that is what I'm hoping for. I will be holding this brand new series of Doctor Who to the highest possible standard. Please deliver. Thank you. So last week I told everybody that I was going to make this brand new video community driven. I was going to get people to throw suggestions at me to talk about things that they want me to talk about, whatever that may be in the Doctor Who universe. Now obviously I had to swerve away from that just a little bit because this brand new trailer dropped. There was loads of hype and all the rest, and I couldn't just ignore this. I think it was a good talking point, and everything that I just said I wanted to put in videos previous, but I had other things that I wanted to cover as well. So here we go. So this is a community driven bit, and this is another marvellous contribution to one of my Patreon members, Brian. Now Brian has helped me out in the past because it was he who suggested that I make a video all about the 30 Years in a TARDIS documentary, and it was he that also tipped me off that the maker of that documentary, Kevin John Davis, was a thoroughly nice chap. And turns out he was absolutely right. Kevin John Davis was a thoroughly nice chap, so nice in fact that he allowed himself to be interviewed for that video. So I'll put a link to that vid at the end of this particular video if you want to watch it. It's one of my favourite videos that I made. I think it's great, flows really nicely, and Kevin Davis is just a great person to talk to about Doctor Who. He's a fan and he's a very, very smart fella. So Brian has come through for me once again, and he sent me something that I dived into head first and enjoyed very immensely indeed. You see, what we have here, distinguished followers, is issue 10 of the Doctor Who 84 comic book series. Doctor Who 84 was a Marvel US comic publication that was brought out in the mid-80s specifically for American audiences. It was 23 issues long, and it featured colorized reprints of comics that had previously been published in Britain's Doctor Who magazine. Now, hold that thought, because I'll get back to the colorized thing in just a minute. But these have been preserved in their entirety on the Internet Archive website. What I'm going to look at here is issue 10 of Doctor Who 84 comic publication. This was published, the cover date was July 1985, which means it might have been published in June, because it's always a month ahead with magazines and comics, isn't it? So this was published middle of 1985. It's issue 10. And inside this issue, you have a write-up titled A Probable History of Cybermen. Now, this is a very fun document indeed, and I had a good time looking at this. So this is A Probable History of Cybermen. This was written by a Mr. Patrick Daniel O'Neill, who wrote a lot of different things for the American Doctor Who comic series. And he acknowledges right at the start that he is indebted to Mr. Jean-Marc Lofficier. Jean-Marc Lofficier, I think you pronounce that. Jean-Marc Lofficier was a Doctor Who historian in his own right, and when I looked him up on WikiFandom, it says here as well, actually, that he wrote the Doctor Who program guide. So he was one of those people that really went deep into the nerdy history of Doctor Who, my kind of dude. So he enlisted the help of Jean-Marc Lofficier did Mr. Patrick Daniel O'Neill to create a probable history of the Cybermen. And this is interesting because I want you guys to keep in mind that this was written before the David Banks timeline. Now, the David Banks timeline was published in David Banks's Cybermen book of the late 80s. Anyone who's watched my videos before, I've talked extensively about this book. I've waffled on about it over and over and over. But for people who have never seen my videos before, the David Banks timeline was basically a reshuffling of the original classic Doctor Who Cybermen TV stories, not in the order that they were transmitted, but in the order that they happened according to the cyber race themselves, which means different things actually happened at different times. And this was written before that, but it kind of runs in the same process. It runs along the same historical timeline of the David Banks timeline to an extent. Alright, so it starts off with the twin planet. There's the big difference right there. Starts off with the twin planet and talks about how Mondas was floating over towards planet Earth and setting up a Z-bomb to blow the planet. And it talks about how the Doctor and his companions outwitted them, and we all know how that went. But then it goes into the next bit. It says, with Earth facing increasing danger from the alien attack as it makes its first ventures into space, etc., etc., the United Nations establishes the Intelligence Task Force unit to deal with the problem. Heading unit's British forces is Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge-Stewart, who faces his baptism of fire when the Cybermen paralyse the planet's population and invade through the sewers. Mankind is unaware of the survival of any Cybermen until this time, believing they were all destroyed when Mondas exploded. And that is the one big difference between this and the David Banks timeline, because the David Banks timeline acknowledges that when you look at the dates of these Doctor Who stories, that the invasion was actually set somewhere in the 70s, which means that the invasion was actually the first time that the humans on Earth encountered Cybermen, because the 10th planet and the events of the 10th planet and the appearance of Mondas didn't happen until after, in 1986. So that's a bit of a departure. Still all fun and games. I like the idea, however, the unit in the back of their heads, even though it wasn't mentioned in the series. I like the idea that planet Earth was thinking about the whole arrival of Mondas and the destruction of Mondas and the possibility of Cybermen coming back one day during the events of the invasion. Obviously, no one ever talks about it, but it's just an interesting bit of reshuffling the canon to make you think that maybe people like Brigadier and Sergeant Benton were thinking about the Mondas appearance of, you know, way back when they were fighting the Cybermen in the invasion. And then it moves on from the invasion to the Wheel in Space, which happened in the 1990s. So that is kind of shuffled up in David Banks' order, because the Wheel in Space comes first, and then it's over to 2070, which is the Moon Base, which was the first Patrick Troughton Cybermen story and the second ever Cybermen story in the history of Doctor Who. And then it talks about that. And then this is where this recounting gets really, really cool for me, because the next story of TV Doctor Who that it acknowledges is Tomb of the Cybermen. But before it does that, it goes into a bit of backstory of the Cyber Wars as a bit of historical context for Revenge of the Cybermen. Now, Revenge of the Cybermen referenced the Cyber Wars as a kind of bit of backstory for that particular episode, and it talks about that and the war between the Cybermen and the Vogons and the invention of the glitter gun and the discovery that gold was the weakness of Cybermen. And I like to think that you can just plop the plop the events of the Audacity box set, namely the Great Cyber War story, right into that bit of text there. Then it goes to Tomb of the Cybermen, and then it goes to Earthshock. Alright? Because Tomb of the Cybermen, according to this, happens in 2450, and Earthshock happens not too long after, in 2565. It talks about the death of Adric, preventing the freighter from destroying Earth in the Age of the Dinosaurs. And then right at the end, about 400 years later, wow, where are they getting these dates from? About 400 years later, Voga has drifted into Earth's solar system, and space station Nerva is built to act as a beacon warning space shipping away from it. And that is, of course, the revenge of the Cybermen. So the Doctor destroys the Cybermen in that story, and then it says at the end, the Doctor and his companions prevent Voga's destruction and aid in destroying the Cybermen, who are thought to be the last of their kind. Only time will tell if this is true. So according to this timeline, it goes Team of the Cybermen, then Earthshock, and then right at the end, Revenge of the Cybermen, which is a different and also interesting way of telling the Cybermen timeline, I think. I like the way that it kind of goes in that order. So you've got the Telosian Cybermen hiding out in their tombs, and then you go into the Cyber Neomorphs, and then at the end you've got the kind of Cyber Nomads, which presumably happened sort of after the moon base. It's all a bit jumbled when you break down the finer details of the David Banks timeline, and ultimately none of it matters. It's just good fun. But for anybody who geeked out on my previous timeline videos, then I think this is quite a fun and fascinating reshuffle. And also, I love these drawings. They're extremely cute, and they're just classic moments. Look, you've got the Cyberman from Invasion coming out of the manhole. You've got a Telosian Cyberman breaking out of his cellophane tomb there, and Wheelies doing their hand thing over Zoe, which is a sort of homage to a photographic image that was used to promote the Wheel in Space, but it never actually featured in the TV episode itself. And they've just got all the they've just got all the Cybermen just completely spot on in their appearance and their aesthetics. Added a nice bit of colour to their chest pieces as well. Thank you very much, Brian, for showing me this. It's great fun. And what I also discovered as well, this brought resolution to a long mystery that I had when I made my Croton Cybermen with a Soul videos, because I did that back in, I think it was October 2023. I'm extremely proud of that video. It's one of my all-time favourite videos, my Croton Cyberman with a Soul video, and in the middle of that I talked about how I found evidence online of there being a colorized print of the original Croton stories, as in throwback Cyberman with a Soul and Ship of Fools, and mystery solved. I know exactly where they came from now, and they're right here, available to watch on the Internet Archive database, available to look at, shall I say. So issue 2, Doctor Who 84 issue 2 is where you will find part 1 of Throwback. Doctor Who 84 issue 3 is where you will find part 2 of Throwback. And issue 16 is where you find the Ship of Fools. All those stories in glorious colour, available to look at, and I am so happy that I have found these. So yeah, job's a good 'un. Right, I do believe I have waffled on quite enough. Before we go, I'm just going to leave you with this image. Okay, so this is at the very back of Doctor Who comics, Doctor Who 84, should I say. This is a image right at the back of issue 2 of that comic, and it's the 5 Doctors, but not the 5th one that you think. It's Hartnell, Troughton, Tom Baker, John Pertwee, and Peter Cushing there. Good renditions. I like Patrick Troughton's mullet that is going on, and they seem very kind of authentic and true to life until you get to John Pertwee. I honestly couldn't tell you what the hell is going on with that guy there, other than that he looks like a sort of delicious ice cream. So there you go. I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please send more interesting stuff that I can waffle on about. I will return next week, where we will only have one more video left before I get into the reviews of the new series of Doctor Who. In the meantime, you can check me out on social media at Blue Sky, at thechosenchimp.bsky.social. You can also follow me on Patreon for just £1 a month. You can become a distinguished follower. I will mention your name in these videos if you do that. And also check me out on TikTok, QR code, TikTok. you know, tutorials, misleading cakes, all that good stuff. Until then, I hope you are all safe and well. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you next time. Have a good one.